Hey Amarillo, I'm Jason Boyette, and you're listening to Hey Amarillo, the interview podcast featuring some of the most interesting people and stories of Amarillo, Texas. This week's episode is supported by SKP Creative, and the team there wanted me to talk about the Amarillo Tribune. If you haven't heard, this is a new, local, nonprofit journalism project where I'm a founding board member. The Amarillo Tribune is Amarillo's first community-supported, digital-only news organization. It's free public service journalism about Amarillo and this area. Jackie Kingston is the CEO and executive editor, and she's built up a really strong news team for this daily publication. They're providing local coverage about issues we care about, including the city government. I won't be writing for this publication. I'm just a board member. I'm on the nonprofit side of things. But I'm excited about this project, and I hope you'll support it. You can learn more by visiting amarillotribune.org and be sure to sign up for its weekly newsletter. That's amarillotribune.org. And thanks to SKP Creative for the support. As part of this podcast partnership with Brick and Elm Magazine, I want to give a podcast shout out to Northwest Physicians Group, Avant Garden, Coco Curtain Studio and Interiors, Champion Barbecue Supply, and Leslie Massey Farmers Insurance. You can get the September-October issue of Brick and Elm on local newsstands or subscribe to it at brickandelm.com. Today's guest is Maile Srader. Maile is one of those accidental entrepreneurs who, as a homeschool mom, discovered a local need for what she calls busy bags designed for purposeful play. Her storefront, Purposeful Play, near 34th and Georgia, is in the West Haven Shopping Center, and it has since become an educational resource store for teachers, therapists, homeschooling families, and families of children with disabilities. It provides a lot of things, but what's most popular there are sensory items, fidgets, learning binders, and a lot more. My nephew Ace has Down syndrome, and every time he comes to Amarillo, Ace ends up with something new, something he loves from Purposeful Play. So Maile and I talk about how she and her family ended up in Amarillo, how her business began, and why the local community has embraced it. Here's Maile Srader. Maile Srader, welcome to the Hey Amarillo podcast. Thanks for being here.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm honored to have you. I know we'll talk a little bit about your business and what's unique about that, but I want to start with you the same way I start with all my guests, and that's just to ask why you're here. So what brought you to Amarillo in the first place?
I was actually born and raised in Amarillo, so that's how I got here.
Okay.
My parents were big community people. They both spent their entire careers with AISD.
Okay.
My dad was a football wrestling coach for Bowie Middle School, basically his whole career, Coach Kyle Black. And my mom was the instrument repair technician for AISD, so she repaired every instrument.
Band instruments?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, every instrument that any child played probably crossed her path, so...
Has AISD always had a repair technician like that?
You know, I don't know what they have now, but my entire childhood, I think she spent 30 years with AISD. So her shop was set up at Carver Elementary. I know Carver's kind of split now, but that's where her big shop was. And I used to love hanging out there and conducting all kinds of science experiments with her cool glues and bow hairs and all kinds of things.
That's such an interesting job. I know a few people who are luthiers, they repair guitars and stuff like that, but to be able to repair all different kinds of instruments just seems so specialized.
It really was. It was just her and another guy for forever. She also worked like in the evenings repairing for toll zines.
Okay.
And private people would bring instruments to our house, if it broke at night. But yeah, it was really neat, and she could play them all, and it was a really cool
career. It's more than being a technician. Like you have to be an artist in some ways to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so that's really interesting. Where did you go to school?
So I grew up in the Belmar neighborhood until 5th grade, and then I had one brother. We went through the Belmar school, and then when I was in 5th grade, we moved way south of town, which at the time felt like we were way out in the country, to Timber Creek Canyon. Okay. I don't know if you know where that is.
Yes.
Now feels like it's not far away at all.
Yeah, the town has approached Timber Creek.
Yeah. But at the time, it was a really big deal. The city folk left and went to the country, and then I joined the Canyon ISD schools with Valley View. And I was the first year at Westover when they opened. I was a 7th grader. And then back to Valley View and Randall. Graduated from Randall.
When you graduated, did you know what you wanted to do with your life? Like,
No.
Did you have a plan? Did you go to college or?
I did go to college. So in high school, I was a choir and speech gal. And so I felt like that would be what I always do, but it really wasn't. It was just really made for a great high school career.
Mm-hmm.
But I met my now husband at church. We went to Southwest Baptist, which is now Oasis.
Right.
Met there. And so the moment I graduated high school, we got married, moved to Dallas to go to Dallas Baptist University.
Both of you went there?
Yes.
Did both of you graduate from there?
So he graduated from there with a biblical studies degree. I started there, but once I decided that I wanted to do teaching, I wanted my degree in early childhood, it made a lot more financial sense to go do that at the University of Texas at Arlington.
Okay.
So I switched and graduated from there.
Okay. Was the goal then for you to get into a teaching career long term?
You know, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. But while I was in school, and I loved it at Dallas Baptist, I just knew that eventually we would have a family. And so I started thinking, like, what would be the best place for me to study so that would benefit my family in the future? And then once I got into teaching, I really loved it and thought I would do that forever.
Okay.
I actually got hired in Arlington and taught 2nd grade there for several years until I got pregnant with my first son and then became a stay-at-home mom.
Okay. How long did you live in the Dallas area?
We were there for 14 years.
Okay.
And we thought we'd never come back.
When did you come back?
We came back in 2015.
Okay. Tell me why you made that decision.
Going back a little bit, while we were in Dallas and I was staying home with my son, James, who's now 15, we just were looking for what was going to be our family dynamic. What would our family do, not only to serve the Lord, but also to be the best for our kids. And I ended up getting invited to a benefit dinner for Buckner Child and Family Services in Dallas. And I thought I would get gussied up and go with a friend and eat the best food, and that would be it.
Yeah.
But while we were at the dinner, I met a family. They were the keynote speakers, and they were a family who had 3 little biological children, and then they had 3 little foster children. And their goal that night was to present their family as an option for how you can do foster care simultaneously with your kids.
Okay.
And so that was a whole new world for me. I had always really been interested in foster care, but I thought that it was something that you do when your kids grow up. That's the only people I knew. And so it just opened my eyes to the world of foster care and the need for families. And so at the time we had 1 kid, and within 6 months of that dinner, we went through all the process to become licensed, and we got our first foster child. So that was kind of our big Dallas time.
Okay.
We fostered for 10 years.
Okay.
So
what was that like? I've talked to a number of people on the podcast who grew up in foster care. Some had great experiences. Obviously some do not have great experiences, and there's a lot of statistics about that. But like, as a parent, tell me what that was like for you.
There were parts that were really scary for me, especially in, what I'm choosing to expose my son to.
'Cause sometimes kids come in and they've
Yeah.
been through some stuff.
Yeah.
They're bringing
They all have
trauma, baggage, different kinds of challenges.
Yeah. And we fostered children who were very young. And so we didn't have some of the behaviors that some people see, but our first little girl that we got, she was 9 months old at the time. And so our son was 18 months old. And they just really became the best of friends. And we had her for nearly 2 years. And so that was just, she was just a part of our family for forever. And really the hard thing that came from her is just the goodbye.
Yeah.
Preparing our son for that, preparing us for that. So I would say that it's really probably the best thing I've ever done for my kids is to be a foster parent. I think it exposes them to different people, different circumstances, real compassion. It's made them see that they have something special that they can share with another child. And so, it's been a really great thing for our family.
Tell me about the psychological aspect of bringing a foster child into your home when they're young. They become a sibling, as close to a sibling as you can be, to your child. But it's like a 2-year gig. And then you have to say goodbye. I know sometimes foster care results in adoptions, but not always. How do you deal with that as a parent? Because you're going to get attached to that child in a very similarly motherly way. And saying goodbye like that's difficult.
Yeah.
That's one thing I can't imagine.
Mm-hmm. No, it's beyond difficult. And, there's a famous lady, her name is Karen Purvis. She wrote a book called The Connected Child. And if you're in the trauma foster care world, you've heard of her. But I went to one of her conferences, and she said that if a child can make an early connection, like a real bond with an adult, a caregiver, then that connection can carry them throughout their life to where they desire healthy relationships.
Okay.
Because they've felt that. And so the love and the attention and the time that you spend is not wasted, and so because it kind of feels like
you're loving someone for 2 years and then you let them go.
Yeah. And then you worry that you've become part of the problem.
Right.
They're going to be re-traumatized.
The impermanency of their situations. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was definitely on my heart, especially with our first little girl, because she kind of came and went a few times at the end. And it was just gut-wrenching.
Yeah.
She was adopted by a family member, and they're doing well, and she's doing well, and we still have contact with her today.
And that's what you want anyway.
Yes.
You want their family to be involved.
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
So eventually you ended up coming back to Amarillo. Tell me about that process.
Well, to be honest, our family got really big, and we needed help.
Okay. Big with foster children?
Big with kids. So we had our son, James, and then we ended up through our foster care journey adopting a 12-year-old.
Okay.
So he became our oldest. So I have my firstborn and I have my oldest.
Interesting.
And then we had another biological child, and we're still fostering. But then the housing market in Dallas kind of went through the roof, and we were like, if we're ever going to leave, this is our chance.
Okay.
Because our house, we lived in Carrollton, which is beautiful. And so it gave us an opportunity to come back to Amarillo, where the pace is slower. It was a lot more affordable for our one-income family. And we had family here that, could help. And it was just a good lifestyle change for us.
Did that turn out to be true? Like your thoughts, this will be a good lifestyle change. Let's move to Amarillo. Was that the reality once you did move here? Because Amarillo has grown a lot too. Like the pace here maybe is a little bit faster than it was in 2015.
It's definitely faster than it was when we left in 2001.
Okay.
It's still not as fast as Dallas.
Okay.
So it was a really great fit lifestyle-wise for us. We're a homeschool family also. And so the community here of homeschoolers is really great. So that's been nice. It was great in Dallas too, but in a different way. The race in Dallas for excellence and for everyone to be the best and do all the things is hard when you're a homeschool family, because if you want your kids to do all those things, you have to fund that.
Okay.
And so that was tough. But being back in Amarillo, the dynamic is different with homeschool. It's a very supportive community here, and so that was a good fit for us. Coming back and having family, it wasn't all rainbows and butterflies like we thought, but, it was still home. It felt like home. So
tell me, now that you've been in the foster care world in 2 different cities, now you're in Amarillo, where there's a lot of conversations now about foster care. It seems to come up on my show all the time.
Great.
That there's you wanted to find a a life here that was a little bit simpler. Did you find like a more supportive community when it came to a family like yours, or to the foster care system, or to even the homeschooling world? Like, is there something different in the character of Amarillo compared to a larger city like the Metroplex area?
The diversity here is not like Dallas. So our family is a collection of lots of different races. So that hasn't necessarily been the easiest fit in Amarillo. Our oldest son is a big African-American dude.
Okay.
He's had some struggles here, to be honest, but he's doing well now. But just in his teenagehood and stuff, he ran across some things.
I mean, I have friends who have adopted children in LA and have experienced some of the same things.
Yeah.
I think that may be universal, whether it's the blend of cultures within a family, you know, trying to keep your kid immersed in your world, but also in the culture they come from. Like, you have to be so intentional about that.
Yeah.
And then just dealing with, you know, just the casual racism that I think you find
Everywhere.
in every community. That it may be degrees worse in smaller towns or more rural areas, but it's still in a lot of places.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Definitely, for sure. And I think that, like you said, with the growing awareness of foster care and adoption, I think we're seeing more families who don't look alike. And so sometimes it's just, you just don't know, you know, and so you don't know what questions to ask or how to phrase, is this your son? You know,
right.
Things like that. And so that's definitely growing, and I'm glad about that.
I want to talk a little bit about your business, because it's a business that is very specialized. So people that aren't exposed to your products probably have never heard of what you do.
Yes.
Those that are, like, probably are your customers on a regular basis.
Yes.
So talk about that. Introduce the concept, what it is, and you know, what kinds of services you're providing this community.
Okay, so my store is called Purposeful Play. We're at 34th and Georgia in the West Haven Shopping Center. And what we do is we hand make a lot of learning activities, sensory bins, things for children to use either in their at-home learning or in the classroom, things that therapists can use with their clients that they meet with. And then we also carry just your typical books, toys, things like that. But what we love to do is be a place to provide like the therapy tools or the specialized things that kids need, especially kids who are neurodivergent, who might need, you know, specific fidgets or things to chew on, or weighted blankets and vests and things that they can use to help keep them regulated and help them be successful at home or at school. And so that it started really with me just making what we call busy bags, which are a learning activity inside a zippered pencil pouch.
Okay.
I was making them for my own kids, and my friends were like, hey, can you make me one? Or can you send me that file and I'll make one? And so it turned into me making 4 or 5 of everything and selling them to my friends who wanted them, to quickly needing more space at my house and seeing that maybe there's a real need for this in our community, and starting the store. And
it arose from then your own family, just needing to have specialized things for your own kids to play with.
Yeah, I really wanted the games that I had in my classroom when I was a teacher. I wanted those for my own kids. So when we adopted Terrence when he was 12, he couldn't read or write or do math. And so I just kind of started him at ground zero with, you know, my early elementary ed training, and we just went from there. And so
I should say that my family knows about your business because my nephew Ace loves some of your products. My mom, Ace's grandmother, has probably been one of your best customers because she needs to find things for him to do when he comes to visit, and he loves a lot of those kinds of things. And so, tell me about your customers, because my guess is that you're like the source for things that they would not otherwise be able to find at all here. Maybe some specialized places they could order off the internet. But just wanting to come and browse and see like what's available. Like, are there other places to get anything like that here?
Maybe a few of the things, especially with the fidgets. There's other places. But yeah, my goal when I opened the store was for it to be a place where kids could come in with their parents, pick out a learning game, and go home and play it. And I never really dreamed that it would become a resource place for some of the most vulnerable kids and students who are struggling. Their teachers are struggling. Their parents are struggling. That was, a great treat that comes from the store, is getting to interact with families like that. But yeah, so the customers are typically moms and homeschool moms, teachers, and then really therapists.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I think it's nice. Yes, you can go order almost anything on Amazon, but you can't touch it and feel it. Then you have to go through the return process when it doesn't fit or it's scratchy or your kid doesn't like it. So it's nice. I have everything open where they can try it on, feel it, play with it, roll on it, whatever, click it, snap it, squeeze it, all the things. So it's nice for kids to get to come in and see like what really feels good to them, what feels good to the mom, or what she's willing to, that fidget wouldn't really bother me if I was reading aloud or something like that. The teachers too. So it's been nice.
Give listeners that maybe haven't been exposed to that world at all. They don't have a kid who needs some sort of fidget device or who needs that sort of tactile plaything. Like, give me a sample of what something might be. Describe it, for people that are not exposed to that world.
I think pretty much every kid needs a fidget of some sort. If you catch yourself saying, hey, get your hands out of your mouth, or hey, don't chew on your shirt, or don't pick at your nails, or don't fiddle with your shoelace, those kinds of things. Our sensory processing is always looking for something to help us be calm and regulated and focus. And sometimes fiddling with something can, even though your hands are busy, your mind is tuned in to be able to listen. And so sometimes something as simple as just a little stretchy silicone rope that a child can pull back and forth with both hands, or twirl in a little circle in front of their face, is all that's needed to take a situation from I'm feeling a little out of control to, okay, I'm feeling calm again. And there's all kinds of things. There's little, they call them bubble timers, that, little bubbles drip down almost like a quick lava lamp, that kind of make you start breathing deeply, make you focus on something. And so teachers are starting to put like calm down corners in their classrooms where it's a quiet place full of different textures that kids can go and sit when they're feeling wound up, or even when they need to wake their brains up a little bit, when they're feeling just a little mushy inside. And so they're realizing that some of these fidgets are not just little toys that people like to carry around. And really it's surprising with the adults that come in, because a lot of my customers are adults who have to sit at desks all day, have to sit in Zoom meetings, and so they're bored, their mind's wandering, and they need something to do and fiddle with. And so they come in and squeeze and click and grab all the things too. So
I want to talk about the education side of it in a classroom, because you are an educator. You've got a lot of experience. Like, that's a real change over the past 20 years with how teachers have thought about, maybe ADHD or learning disabilities or inabilities to focus. We're learning more about that, like why some brains are wired a little bit differently, but also like how you can manage that. And so 20 years ago, it would have been strange to have a corner where you can go fidget for a little bit. And now that's becoming more commonplace. And I wonder if you can talk about that change and how we understand that kind of thing.
I mean, I'm grateful. I was the kid that was up all the time, talking to my friends, sharpening my pencil 15 times, chewing on everything. Back in the day, it was sit down, sit still, pay attention,
control yourself.
Sit up, control yourself. Yeah. And so you start feeling like, what is wrong with me? Because I literally can't control myself. And so the awareness has been great. And I think, some of the teachers, maybe they were slow to learn a new way, but I think once they see how it really does help the overall classroom management, they're getting on board. And we're seeing more and more these days of kids struggling, I think. I don't know if that's maybe just because we're more accepted of, like, we're not telling them to sit down and be controlled and don't do this, or if something else is going on. But in the classroom, teachers, they're having a hard time. So you're seeing a lot of moving away from desk and sitting still all the time, and people are getting comfy pillows and carpets and, floor seating and stuff where kids can better, wiggle and be accommodated for.
Are you surprised to see yourself owning and operating a business, a small business?
Yes.
Was that a hurdle you had to get over? This is not me. I'm an educator, or I'm not trained for this sort of thing.
It was hard for me to step away from home.
Okay.
I spent, the store's 3 years old, so I spent 12 years as a stay-at-home mom, so way longer than I ever did education or anything else. So that was a big deal to step away from home a little bit and do this. I'm a creative person. I'm a people person. I'm not a business person. So there's been a lot of growing pains with me learning I also have to handle the business side of things.
Sure. Inventory management.
Inventory, taxes, deadlines, even just the sales aspect of, offering something and people paying for it. That was even awkward at first, because
you want to just help people, right?
Sure,
Say, here, this worked for me.
Yeah, I spent 3 hours creating this file. Let me just email it to you, type of thing. And so that took me many years to kind of find, my footing in that. And I'm still not great at the business aspect of it.
Are most of your sales like walk-in customers, or do you sell online outside this area?
I do sell online.
Okay.
So I have a Facebook page, and this year I started a website that generates a little bit of sales on that platform. I used Instagram a little bit. I'm just really not tech savvy, so I'm not really on Instagram very much. But on Facebook, I have my page, and people can either comment, and I put it on hold for them at the store, which is so old school, but it's how we operate, and I like it and they like it, because teachers can't come in every 3 days when they see something that they like. So I keep things on hold and they pick it up when they can. And then also a lot of shipping.
Okay. Mm-hmm. The last thing I wanted to ask was, I've had a lot of conversations with small business owners about Amarillo itself as a good place to own a business, as a place where the community is really supportive of small businesses. And I wonder if that's been the case for you. Somebody who didn't ever intend to go an entrepreneurial route, you just kind of fell into it. Like, have you found that this is an ecosystem that makes it a good place to do what you're doing?
So with the community, yes. Everyone is very supportive, and I hear multiple times a day, I would way rather come in here and support you than have to go to Walmart or order on Amazon, or even though I know that would be way easier for them with some of the things, to come while you're doing your grocery shopping, pick up your birthday present for a friend at Walmart, but they come, to my store. The community's been great. It's been a little hard retail space wise. Mm-hmm. The retail space is really expensive in Amarillo. Maybe it is everywhere. But that would be, something that I hope for with, landowners and things that they could maybe be a little more accommodating to the small businesses who are trying to make it. But it's been really great to see the support. And like you said, the people who come back again and again and again, like your mom.
I was trying to keep you in business and keep Ace occupied. The last thing I wanted to ask is, you came from the Dallas area. Do you see what you're doing? Like, had you started that while you lived there, would it be the same as it is here? There are a lot more people there, but also a lot more competition maybe. Mm-hmm. Do you ever think about that? Like, would you have started this business if you still lived there?
I definitely don't think so. I probably would have started the in-home aspect of it. Mm-hmm. I did it in my home for 6 years before we opened the store. That part I could have pulled off in Dallas. just with friends and Facebook and things like that. But like having a store and all of that, I don't think that could have ever happened in Dallas. It's easier here to meet people and bring in people like that. And word of mouth is easier here because there's real community. It's not so big where you just really don't know anybody. So that's definitely something that's better about Amarillo.
Have you seen businesses like that in larger cities like yours that are not just selling, the fidget side of things, but like putting together little kits and packs and those kinds of things?
Definitely not. Definitely not. In Dallas, the big place that everybody liked to shop was Lakeshore. And they have really great, dependable learning toys that daycares and things use. So there's places like that you could go and get things. But the kits and the sensory bins, nothing that's like what we have.
The last thing I wanted to ask is, you came here with a lot of experience in the foster care world. I mean, that was your community. And as I understand, that still remains kind of your core community of people. But because of your business, you've also gained entrance into other really close-knit circles, whether it's the Down syndrome world, like my family, or with people who have autism, or teachers and educators and therapists. I wonder if you could talk just a little bit about the close-knit aspect of Amarillo and the support that people tend to have for each other within those small circles.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the Amarillo community, that as you get to know this person, they link you up with this person, and you have a very big circle. And so that has been really great, not only having the store, but just, other places that we're involved in. But yeah, the store has introduced me to so many teachers, where then I get to hear about teacher struggles or teacher successes in the community, the therapists who are going in and out of homes, even just like within the churches, like the churches who need things and their people and what they're trying to do to accommodate for neurodivergent kids or kids with trauma. All of that kind of, there's kids with trauma and sensory needs in every circle.
Yeah.
And so it's been nice to be able to broaden my friend groups. And also I didn't mention, but our youngest daughter has Down syndrome.
Okay.
And so that's how we're also linked up with the Down syndrome community. And so it's just, you meet people along the way and you get to know them and what their needs are. And that's been helpful with the store too, because it helps me know, like, what do we need to have in stock, or what do we need to be looking for that people really need.
This episode of Hey Amarillo is supported by Lazy Boy Home Furnishings here in Amarillo. You know Lazy Boy as a national brand, but its Amarillo store is independently owned and operated by the Hawkins family, and they live right here in town. And here's the thing, they offer a lot more than just recliners. Amarillo's locally owned Lazy Boy Home Furnishings has a ton of products in stock. They're ready to take home or deliver today. So go visit the Lazy Boy of Amarillo showroom at 3636 Sonsi. That's 3636 Sonsi. Okay, I'm back with Maile Srader. Maile, this is the part of the show I call 8 Straight. 8 Straight is sponsored every week by Panhandle Plains Historical Museum in Canyon. It's the largest history museum in Texas, and its collection doesn't just include visual elements to its exhibits, but multiple hands-on, touchable displays, which is a fact I chose because it sort of aligns with what you do. So you can read about that at panhandleplains.org, but the best way to experience it is to go to the museum. Okay, when you think of Amarillo or Canyon 10 years from now, what do you hope for?
Going back to my passion for foster kids, I really hope that in 10 years, the foster care community of kids here, that they all have a home. So I hope that people will understand the great need and either step up for their own kin and do kinship care of someone in foster care, or choose to bring somebody into their family via adoption.
Okay.
So hopefully 10 years, every child in Amarillo has a home.
That's a fantastic dream. I hope that we make some strides toward it.
Yes.
Other than wind, what does this area have too much of?
Not everyone will agree with me, but the big chain stores, I find that they're just popping up everywhere. And
the Walmarts?
The Walmarts, but also just like the Dollar Trees, the Dollar Generals, things like that. I hope that will even though those are easy to walk into, I hope that people will start supporting shopping local, shopping small, and give some of us small business people a chance.
Yeah, I feel like there's a really good mindset in Amarillo in that direction, maybe when it comes to restaurants sometimes, but then we can't always overcome the convenience factor of, popping into a dollar store instead of going to a local retailer. And so that is something probably every community struggles with. And the larger we grow, the more we're going to attract those big chains.
And in some ways, we need some of it.
Well, I mean, they provide jobs for one thing.
They provide a lot of jobs, and with the economy, sometimes you need to get something cheap.
yeah, that's true. So I feel like your store provides sort of a handmade authenticity that you're not going to get at a big chain.
Hopefully.
And so, once you set yourself apart, then maybe you take yourself out of that competition. But
yes.
That's the goal, right?
Yes.
What does this area not have enough of?
Adopted families.
Yeah.
So I think I hope that that's growing and the awareness is growing, and people will, like we've said, see that not all families match, and that's okay, and that adoption is a valid choice for growing your family.
Okay, what's your favorite local neighborhood?
So we are new residents in Sleepy Hollow.
All right.
So we moved to Sleepy Hollow. We moved from Ridgecrest to Sleepy Hollow back in December, and we love it so much. It's beautiful. It's peaceful. There's people out all the time walking, and I haven't met a whole lot of people, but the neighborhood is just delightful. So
it's one of those. I've been here long enough that I still think of Sleepy Hollow as a new neighborhood.
Yes,
because it was new when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Now it's established, and it's got like big trees, and it feels, it feels like maybe Wolfland felt when I was a kid.
Yes.
Which is interesting to see if you live here long enough. Neighborhoods start to change their character that way.
Yes.
So it's always interesting for me to hear a newcomer perspective about something that I think of as older.
Yes.
What's your favorite Amarillo area restaurant?
Jorge's.
Okay.
We love Jorge's. We go there a little too much. Our oldest son, who lives on his own, he loves Jorge's. And so anytime we're like, oh, we're missing Terrence, let's see if he wants to go to dinner, we go to Jorge's and stuff ourselves with chips and salsa and papas. What I love about Jorge's is not only the food, they're very well staffed. There's just people everywhere. And so you never, you're not ever without something for long. And I don't know, we just love going there.
That's a good point, because you find a lot of restaurants now that are struggling with staffing. And when you find someone that seems to have plenty of people, that does feel different.
Yeah. And there's got to be a huge cost involved in that for them, but it really makes it an enjoyable experience to eat there. So,
okay, what's the most underrated aspect of living in the Panhandle?
For me, the most underrated aspect is the homeschool community. There's a lot of, the perception on homeschooling has really changed in the last, my mother-in-law homeschooled, and they were, kind of seen as weird. Now we're not so weird anymore. It's more acceptable, and you see a lot of families. And so in the Panhandle, it's a really great place to be a homeschooler. There's not only a lot of nature places and business, or maybe not businesses, but people who are willing to come alongside your homeschool group and teach you something of their trade. So that's been really nice. People are been very giving of their time. But also it's just there's a big community of us, so we don't feel alone. Or if you need access to something that maybe was hard 20 years ago for homeschoolers to get, now it's out there.
You're not as isolated as a family trying to figure that out on your own.
Your kids have plenty of friends. There's plenty to do. Sometimes there's too much to do where you have to say, okay, we actually have to do school. We can't just socialize all the time. So,
what's your favorite local nonprofit?
So I have two. Can I say two?
I'll give you two, yeah.
Okay. So the first one is a new nonprofit. It's called Ethan Project. And it was started by two public school teachers, special ed teachers, who now they have big goals. But right now what they're focusing on is they're going into private schools, even homeschoolers and churches, to try to equip them to best meet the needs of the kids with special needs.
Okay.
So they have found that most families who have a child with special needs don't go to church. And so that's one area that they're working on right now, is equipping churches to handle the children who come in who need more than just sit down and listen in Sunday school. And so I'm really excited to see what they are able to do. A lot of people are super excited about the Ethan Project. They're super excited. And so I'm grateful that they're in our community and trying to help.
Good.
The other one is the Panhandle Orphan Care Network. POCN is what they mostly call themselves. And they deliver care packages to foster homes when they get a new kid. And so I know for us personally, when we got our daughter Lydia, she literally came with nothing. She had a onesie on and she didn't have a bottle, nothing. And so they quickly will call, or you call and you say, hey, I need X, Y, and Z, and they bring it over. And so they have a big closet full of all kinds of things for ages 0 to 18, and they will hook up every foster family that has a new placement. And so they are super great.
Okay, good. Final question. When was the last time you visited Cadillac Ranch?
I never have.
Never?
No.
Oh, even after growing up here, you haven't been there?
I never have. And we drive by and our kids even talk about it. And it's always been one of those things like, we need to go out there, and we just never have.
Okay.
So maybe this is my nudge.
The fall is a good time to go out there. It's less likely to be windy or stormy or muddy.
That's a good idea.
So yeah, you've got a couple months of decent weather to
True.
go see what it looks like.
It's about to get great around here.
Yeah. Okay, that concludes the 8 straight questions. I like to close by asking my guests to endorse something. So what's one thing you would like listeners to know about or to experience?
So the state of Texas, Governor Abbott and his wife has put a lot of attention and money on something called the Heart Gallery. They just had their big launch party in Amarillo.
Right.
And the Heart Gallery is an organization that sets up displays of pictures of kids who are harder to get adopted.
Okay. Like older kids who have special needs.
Yeah. Anything that would, make them, or sibling group, anything that would make them a little harder to get adopted. And so in our region, which includes us and Lubbock, there's a little under 400 kids who the Heart Gallery are trying to get adopted. And so one of the things at the launch party that they are asking for is for people who will let a display be put up at their business or in their church. And so I feel like that's a really easy thing for somebody to do. Can I set this picture up in my store or in in your office complex to just try to help kids get adopted? So I'd like to endorse them, the Heart Gallery.
I think that's a fantastic endorsement. Brick and Elm was at that launch party, and I love the idea. So people can look up the Heart Gallery and find them on Facebook, I know, if they are interested in that. Maile Srader, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that concludes the episode. I want to say thanks to Maile for the interview. You can learn more about her business by looking up Purposeful Play Busy Bags on Facebook. Thanks also to SKP Creative, Lazy Boy Home Furnishings, and Panhandle Plains Historical Museum for supporting this podcast. And thanks to Angelina Marie for editing every week. Thank you for listening. Hey Amarillo exists on a weekly basis because of listeners like you and the local people who support it financially through patreon.com/HeyAmarillo. Hey Amarillo's executive producers include Josh Wood, Wes Reeves, Cindy Graham, Barbara and Jim Witten, Corey Burns, Katie Linger, Jason Burr, and Patrick Burns. This has been episode 373. My name is Jason Boyette, and I'll see you next week.